All right, well, hello everyone. My name is Whitney Crowder. I'm Sea Turtle Coordinator and Marine Turtle Permit Holder for our Sea Turtle Rehabilitation Facility in at Gumbo Limbo Nature Center. And I was first introduced to sea turtles back in the early 2000s in the aquarium field, and have been working in the marine conservation field and pretty much around sea turtles for ever since. Something's always led me back to sea turtles. And I'm excited to be here today to talk to you all about our Sea Turtle program and what we do here at Gumbo Limbo. And I'm going to be focusing today on human impacts and why sea turtles come to rehab. No, on my screen. Oh, there we go. Okay. So for those of you who aren't familiar with who we are, we're an environmental complex that's sitting on about 20 acres of one of the last undeveloped natural hammocks in Palm Beach County. We are part of Red Reef Park, which is located on a barrier island in between the Atlantic Ocean and the coastal waterways of Boca Raton. And our campus today is extremely unique. We have an amazing nature center. We have the FAU Sea Turtle Lab, lots of educational programs. Sea Turtle Conservation Beach team that monitors our 5 miles of beach that's kind of pictured here in this video, and our several aquariums and our Sea Turtle Rehabilitation Hospital, which we have on site. So a little bit of a background here. We opened our Sea Turtle Rehabilitation Facility in January of 2010, and there was kind of an entire area of unused space underneath the classrooms at Gumbo Limbo. They made a perfect temporary spot for housing some sea turtle hospital beds. We currently have 12 sea turtle rehab teams, and because the sea turtle rehab had never really been introduced into our area, we weren't really sure how many turtles we were looking at treating every year. But our patient load does continually increase every year since we've opened, and we now treat well over 100 sea turtle patients annually, and anywhere from hundreds to thousands of hatchlings and washback turtles, which are also really tiny turtles. And this graph, this is a graph, let me see now. This is a graph of our sea turtles treated here at our facility. These are sea turtle patients from very small juveniles. And we say juveniles are, we measure their shells, and that's 10 centimeters straight line length of their shell or larger. So a juvenile turtle to adult size turtle, which we probably about 350 pounds is about the max size of turtle we've admitted to our facility. We had a large spike of sea turtles treated our first year when we opened, and this was due to a cold stone event that occurred through the entire state of Florida. So it's not a real true representative of a normal year for us. And then of course it dropped down in 2011 when we briefly closed for renovations. So I kind of like to think that 2012 was really our grand opening date. That was the first year we started officially operating as a sea turtle rehab facility. And then, like I said, the numbers have been increasing slowly every year. And last year we admitted a total of 142 sea turtles. And I know that doesn't sound like a large number for those of you in other wildlife rehab centers, but 142 sea turtles is a pretty high number of turtles to admit and treat every year. And until 2015, juvenile to adult sea turtle patients were the primary turtles that we treated in our rehab center. In 2016, we kind of restructured our program and hatchlings and post-hatchling procedures. So they tend to fall under the umbrella of our sea turtle rehab clinic. And you can see the large spikes here. The large spikes are usually from big storms. We admitted, I think it was 1,300, no, it's like 1,100 turtles in 2017 after a bunch of hurricanes. So the numbers do range from the hundreds to thousands now for all post-hatchling sea turtles. And a common question that we hear in rehab is how do we get sea turtles? How do they get to our facility? So a lot of them are rescued by boats. People out on the water, enjoying the day, maybe fishing. You see a sea turtle floating at the surface. Sea turtles aren't going to want to hang out at the surface for too long, especially with lots of algae growth and injuries, they'll float the surface. It's a protection mechanism. So we do get a lot of turtles. We will jump on boats with people and we'll work with PD and law enforcement to help rescue turtles from boats. We get turtles that are injured and found on the beach. Lots of people walk their beaches in Florida. And we get sea turtles that get injured, and then they will also, as they're floating on the surface, usually they'll make their way to shore and beach themselves. And then, kind of like I've already mentioned, it is a huge community effort. We wouldn't be able to respond to injured wildlife and rescue as many animals as we do unless we have an amazing community effort. And this was in the back of my car, put a lot of turtles in my car. This is one of our local law enforcement officers helping rescue a large loggerhead sea turtle. For this talk, I'm going to focus on the types of human impact injuries that we see here at our facility. We see trauma, disease, and marine debris, just to break that down a little bit. And so one of the hardest topics that I do talk about a lot with folks is how humans impact sea turtles. Most of our rehab talks highlight all the wound care and treatments that may involve happy releases, happy endings. But this talk, however, will highlight what our job entails a lot of the time. And what we don't always show is the ugly truth. The truth is sometimes hard to wrap your head around, but it's a story that definitely needs to be told so that we can continue to be a voice for wildlife. And I just want to put this warning slide in to let you know that some of these images are going to be graphic and they may even be disturbing, but it is part of wildlife rehab and it's part of what we see on a pretty normal basis. All right, sea turtles are literally hit at every angle. We have developed along their entire coastline, which directly affects sea turtle nesting as the beaches continue to naturally erode. And this is a photo showing sky glow. And sky glow is the artificial light from the city, which illuminates the sky. And sky glow affects nesting females and hatchlings as it causes them to disorient and basically get confused. Sea turtles use the dark sky's moonlight to help them navigate back to the ocean, and they can lose their way when they're trying to make it back to the ocean. They can get hit by cars or even lost in a dune. And they suffer from polluted waters. They're literally breathing in our toxic pollution and even eating it as the plants and marine life absorb it. And many turtle populations live near shore, which is where most of the boat traffic is. And turtles are entangled in our discarded fishing gear and even cooked by fishermen. Turtles' eggs and meat are still poached, believe it or not. And then lastly, they get entangled and ingest marine debris of all types. Okay. So I update this statistic every year, but on average, over 75% of our patients are admitted due to human impact related issues. In some years, the percentage is closer to around 90%. However, in 2021, it was 76. So 19% were hooked by incidental capture. That is typically pier turtles. There's fishermen on the piers, they're fishing for fish, and they incidentally catch sea turtles. 17% of these turtles from last year were hit by boats. 10 were entangled by line and or fishing gear, mostly like lobster traps or big, huge fishing nets, 12-foot turtles that will beach themselves wrapped in all kinds of gear. And last but not least, about 16% of us suffer from a disease called fibropathloma, which correlates with poor water quality. And then again, going back to that percentage of over 75% of our patients admitted annually to our facility are due to anthropogenic activities. Sea turtles live in areas of our waterways that are often heavily trafficked by water vessels. And these vessels can be, small watercraft such as jet skis or even inshore fishing boats, or they can be large, much faster boats like these racing boats you see on the left. Almost 20% of our patient load here are here due to boat collisions. Turtles are air breathers, so they're coming up to get a big breath of air, and on their way back down or on their way up, that's usually when they collide with the boat. A lot of times the boats don't even know that they hit them. Then again, they'll they'll stay at the surface of the water and or beach themselves. And if you're a local here and you snorkel here at our beaches, chances are you've seen sea turtles that live near shore. We have lots of juvenile green sea turtles that actually live here right in our backyard. So again, these can be pretty graphic, I apologize, but these injuries can be brutal. They can be crushing and fatal. They can cause lacerations to all areas of their bodies. They can cause spinal damage, which causes the turtles to be paralyzed in their rear flippers, which really disrupts their swimming behavior. They suffer from what we call blunt force trauma, so that's the hull of the boat crushing into the turtle. The two middle injuries are more of a crushing injury, and the two exterior photos are the lacerations that you can see really clearly from the boat. And then a lot of times they'll live through this trauma, and either they're admitted to our facility, and we know that their quality of life will be so poor that we do end up euthanizing the large majority of these animals. We just had a turtle here over the weekend that had its head split open, and I couldn't believe that it was still alive. But it lost both vision of its eyes from the way that the propeller hit its head. So we did euthanize that animal. A lot of turtles that are hit by boats that come into our facility that we think might have a decent quality of life. However, sometimes they do become what's called permanent animals in facilities. And so we'll see if there's options of rehoming them. We actually have 2 permanent residents here at our facility that wouldn't make it out of the wild, but they make a really great ambassador animal. And then this is a disease called fibropathulomatosis. Super long word, but essentially it's related to non-point source pollution and degrading habitat. It affects sea turtles on a global scale. It's debilitating and it causes growth of benign tumors, which can inhibit their movement, their feeding, and their vision. It's essentially, basically it disrupts their immunity and they just can't fight this disease off. They're living in these degraded water situations. A lot of these turtles, that are mostly green turtles we see this disease facility, come in with these tumors all over their body, and they're living in these intercoastal waters, so it just makes sense that they're living in areas of water where they're seeing a lot more stress from our runoff and degraded water quality. We're actually one of 7 facilities that mix sea turtles with this disease in the state of Florida. And because of that, we do a lot of surgeries. I won't go into too much detail, but we'll need to make sure when the turtle comes in, we always want to look at quality of life. There are ways of removing these tumors. We'll look to make sure that you have one viable eye. A lot of times have this disease, their tumors kind of grow over their eyes, and sometimes it will grow through their eye socket, and then their eyes will need to be removed. So if we have one viable eye, we'll be able to treat that animal, and also we kind of look at their overall health. We look at things like, is the tumor going to disrupt this turtle's swimming behavior after we remove it? Are we going to remove too much tissue? So a lot of different things go into play when it comes to these, but we do save quite a few of them. It does take a lot of resources. It's a long time for them to come to this facility. But we have a hospital room here, and we treat the animals here with this disease, and then we have seen a lot of them go back into the wild. The sad thing is we have to release them back to where they came from. So we have seen some come back and some come back with tumors again. And this is just another picture showing just how much the tumors can grow on these turtles. It's actually a really cute turtle, but you can see she's got tumors on her eyes, and it grows on their flippers. It even grows on their shell and their plastron. So moving to kind of the last and most concerning reason for straying to me is marine debris. And this is what we're going to focus on for the rest of this talk. And marine debris is human waste that is purposely or accidentally released into our waterways. An estimated 33 billion pounds of plastic enter the ocean every year. That's roughly the equivalent of dumping 2 garbage trucks full of plastic into the oceans every minute. Plastics have a profound design flaw. Single-use plastics were made to last forever, but only used one time. And think about that for just a second. The average lifespan of a plastic bag is about 12 minutes. 12 minutes. Plastic bags start as fossil fuel and they end as deadly waste. It takes about 1,000 years for these plastic bags to degrade into landfills, and then they turn into what's called microplastics. Only 9% of the plastic ever produced has actually been recycled, which is a really scary statistic. And our reliance on plastic must be changed. So what happens to plastic after it starts to break down? This is a little graphic to try to help explain that. The graph shows the breaking down of plastics at the ocean surface. It's slowly making its way down to the seafloor. And as the plastic falls, it's eaten by animals at every depth. Some of the plastics make their way into the food chain by sticking to plants, and they're eaten by the tiniest organisms like plankton, even to large fish and even whales. Birds eat those fish, and then humans eat marine life, which are all filled with microplastics. So it's just a giant circle of all of us eating plastic. By the year 2050, there will be more plastic in the ocean. There will be more plastic than fish in our oceans. That's one of those crazy statistics. So I realize this photo was a bit disturbing, but science is out there, so I just wanted to throw this in there. What we do know is that we are breathing plastic, we're eating plastic. Plastic's everywhere, it's throughout our food chain. And it's actually accumulating not only in our drinking tap water, but it's been tested and found in most bottled waters. Research shows that we actually eat about a credit card of plastic a week. How do sea turtles play a role in microplastics? Well, it's simple. It starts with our ocean currents. Garbage patch is a massive collection of plastic debris that has been drawn together by a large system of currents in the ocean called gyres, like this picture. This garbage plastic floats along the major currents and it's sucked into one of 5 gigantic gyres around the world. And on top of that, the buoyant plastic is degraded into smaller pieces, and those are called microplastics through the sun and wind damage and temperature variations and waves and rainlight. These massive garbage patches are actually some of the size of Texas and now referred to as plastic soup. Once a sea turtle's hatched, it swims through these currents and it feeds and lives in the seaweed and the trash at the surface for the first several years of their life. And in fact, sea turtles live and move in these ocean currents for quite a long time. And then sometimes they get washed to the shore. And we know that about all of our, well, I'll go to that in a minute. Our next slide. I'll start rambling. Marine debris is also a major threat to sea turtles, and roughly 30% of our patients were admitted last year due to different types of fishing injuries. Discarded nets, lines, and ropes now make up about 50% of the garbage patches that we just learned about. Fishing line is a common reason for strains that occur in our area. This photo on the left shows a partial amputation actually from fishing line. The line basically will cut through the live tissue and making its way down even to the bone. And a lot of times they'll come in with broken bones from that fishing line. It's kind of like if you wrap like dental floss around your finger really, really hard. A lot of times, eventually that tissue will die and there'll be no blood circulation. So that's what fishing line does. And I'm sure everyone who's on this line works with wildlife we have is very familiar with fishing line injuries. All right. So almost 20% of our patients are admitted due to hook injuries as well. Fishing piers are typically located near shore reef habitats where our juvenile sea turtles live. We work closely with our local pier. We've been working with our local pier for several years now. So when turtles are hooked, the fishermen help retrieve them to the pier, and then we go and pick them up. Fishermen use nets like the photo here in this photograph. This is actually one of our sea turtles, not here locally, but we did rescue this turtle. That's a whole other story for another talk. This turtle photograph was actually made its way back to the Panhandle after being hooked at our pier, came around the coast and was hooked at the Panhandle. But regardless, this is a net that fishermen use to retrieve these animals to help us take the hooks out of these animals. Sometimes the turtles can swallow these hooks, and sometimes they just get hooked in the mouth, So depending on where the injuries are, and sometimes they'll have multiple hooks. But we do surgery like the picture on the right to remove hooks if they're lodged in the throat. And if they swallow them, we've actually had extremely good success with giving them lots of different laxatives, and they will, most of the time, I think less than 5% probably not been able to pass a hook successfully in our facility. And we've had hundreds of hook injuries here. They'll poop the hooks out, actually. Plastic ingestion is one of the most upsetting forms of marine debris to me because it's completely preventable. This large loggerhead, pictured in this photograph here, swallowed a piece of garbage bag. She's a pretty old turtle. She's an adult female turtle, been around for many, many years. And turtles of all ages are now eating plastic. So no matter where they're living in the ocean, they're finding plastic somehow. This turtle feeds off the bottom. She's eating things like crustaceans and different types of animals. So this plastic is obviously breaking down, falling on the ocean's bottom floor, and she's eating things like plastic bags. Plastic injection is also found in some adult turtles, like this turtle here. This is a teenage turtle. We can tell a lot about where the turtle was living from what it poops out when it comes into rehab. It's one of my favorite things actually to do. So this turtle was admitted to rehab. I would have thought that this subadult turtle was probably living inshore. Sure enough, it started pooping out plastic that was floating at the surface. So at this stage of life, this turtle was what we would call a recruiting animal, was obviously living in a floating type of habitat, probably making its way through one of those gyres like I talked about. And then making its way into shore, happened to have an upset stomach and strand. And we found out later why it wasn't feeling so well. It had a lot of plastic in the stomach. So you can see in the photograph there are not only plastic bags, but there's lots of hard plastic. And those are pieces of plastic that are floating at the surface, like bottle caps and broken down plastic silverware. And plastic is also found in our younger juvenile sea turtles. This is a juvenile hospital sea turtle, so plastic doesn't seem to discriminate. You can now see plastic in two loggerhead turtles of different sizes. This is a young juvenile hospital sea turtle. And this is a picture with a lot of plastic. And this is just from one period of time. Looks like a couple of months worth of this turtle pooping out plastic. So we see plastic in all species and sizes of sea turtles. We're even seeing plastic in our newly hatched sea turtles. In fact, this is something we've been seeing for many years. It's no longer a question of, I wonder if these sea turtles can have plastic in its gut. The question's now changed to, I wonder how much plastic this sea turtle is going to have in its gut. So I can show you I'll explain a little bit of this photograph we're actually looking at. In the center of this picture, you can see the intestines. And if you're not familiar with a necropsy, a necropsy is basically an autopsy, which is what we do every time an animal dies here in our facility. So they're endangered species, so everything has to be tracked through paperwork. And every time a turtle dies, we will cut them open and try to figure out cause of death and document it and submit that into our agency. So this turtle's plastron has been removed. And the center is what you see, the intestines. It kind of curves over, makes a U shape in the center of the turtle's body. And those pieces of yellow are pretty easy to see. Those are large plastic shards. So in 2019, we began to get a deeper look at just how much plastic each of these little turtles are ingesting. Because sea turtles are a protected species, like I said, we must necropsy every single patient. And with so much plastic, we had to create a data sheet to help us better quantify what types and colors we were actually seeing in every sea turtle. The picture, so just to give you an idea of what we're doing here, that's one of our data sheets that we do for every of our little tiny necropsy or washback sea turtles. And the picture on the bottom is another necropsy photo, which actually is showing a lot more plastic than the picture before. And then we take the gut sample and then we open it up. Because they're so tiny, these turtles are, just smaller than your hand. It takes a long time and you have to be very careful going through their system. We open up their intestines and empty it into a little dish with some saline water, and that helps us loosen up the fecal, and then we can, usually the plastic will float, and that helps us collect it all. So that's what Emily's doing in this photograph right here. All right. So like I said, almost every wash bag treatment to our facility has plastic in their systems, and it's a few pieces to mostly a lot of pieces. I just gave a few pictures of our measurement curve, and then this was what we were originally putting all of our plastic on to try to take photographs and document and help us kind of count all the plastic we are finding. Plastic sheets are a common find. They're the clear plastic that covers all of your food from the grocery stores. We see things like monofilament and thread and all kinds of different hard plastics, different colors, foam. So sometime back in 2019, after a long day of necropsies, we decided to share what we thought was just a normal day, something that we've been seeing for quite a while. Something changed that day. We wanted to share our day with the world. So the photo on the right is the photo I'm talking about. This photo actually ended up going viral accidentally because it turns out not too many people really knew what we thought was kind of a normal thing to see in Sea Turtle Rehab. So we didn't realize how much engagement we would get from this little tiny turtle story. And after this turtle died after eating plastic, of course, we discovered 104 pieces in this sea turtle, which was kind of a normal number of what we've been seeing. But the post, like I said, went viral. It reached millions of people worldwide. And we were interviewed, and the story was covered by so many stations. And if you actually Google sea turtle and plastic ingestion, this picture will be one that typically will show up pretty quickly in the search. So the post was covered by the Today Show, the Weather Channel, the Guardian, Al Jazeera, CNN, ABC, and lots of others. So this trip was kind of exciting. It kind of seemed to rejuvenate all of us. And after talking to a great friend, Ben Hicks, he's a leader in the environmental field. He takes and shares amazing wildlife photography to the world. He was really excited about helping us share the story. So we started working together to come up with a better picture, better quality to kind of help spread this message even further. And so this turtle right here in this image was, I just basically was like, Ben, just come in and we'll see what we can get pictures of. So we had a turtle that died and just cut it open. And I don't know if I have the number on here. I think this turtle ended up having 134 pieces. I can't quite remember, but this is the plastic from the turtle on to the left. And this turtle was small in the size of my hand. And then we took plastic that we had collected previously in that same year from turtles, and we spelled the word refuse out. And now we sell refuse products in our gift shop to try to help us spread this message even further. So we're really excited about this. And all the funds from anything we sell refuse go back straight to Sea Turtle Rehab. And to kind of sum all of this talk up, I didn't want to end without a message on what people can do right now to start breaking up with plastic addiction. You can swap your plastic straw for a reusable one, and swap balloons for flowers. You can switch to reusable coffees or just say no to plastic coffee lids. You can say no to plastic cutlery and reuse metal or bamboo instead. You can use eco-friendly takeaway containers, or you can just bring your own to restaurants. Do not use plastic bags and bring your reusable ones everywhere. And you can even add a micro tap to your washing machine or switch to a shorter, cooler wash cycle. And then I always like to add this at the end of any talk because it is, you never know when you're going to run up on wildlife, especially a sea turtle on the beach. So what do you do if you find a dead or injured sea turtle? If you are not familiar with your local Sea Turtle hospital number, you can always call the Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission's phone number at 1-888-404-FWCC, or you can just start FWC on your cell phone and text. You can also call Gumbo Limbo's 24-hour Sea Turtle emergency line at 561-212-8691. And just want to acknowledge all of the amazing people that make all of this work happen. All of our staff and volunteers, and the Gumbo Limbo Coastal Stewards for everything they do for our facility, and obviously Fish and Wildlife Commission and Ben Hicks. And this is just a little video. Let's see. And that's all I have. Thank you.
That was awesome. Thank you so much. Katie, do you have anything? Take that as a no. Hold on, let me